While the baseball world obsesses over Roman Anthony's hype train and debates whether the Boston Red Sox made the right moves this offseason, something extraordinary is happening in the shadows of spring training in Fort Myers. A player acquired in what seemed like a relatively quiet trade is absolutely tearing the cover off the baseball, putting up numbers that would make even the most seasoned veterans jealous. Yet somehow, the headlines remain eerily silent. The sports media seems to be sleeping on what could be the steal of the offseason for Boston, and it's time someone shined a spotlight on what's really going down in Red Sox camp right now. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a player stepping into a new organization, feeling the pressure of replacing a potential Hall of Famer in Alex Bregman at third base, and instead of crumbling under that weight, he comes out swinging like he owns the place. That's exactly what Caleb Durbin is doing this spring, and if you're not paying attention yet, you're about to feel seriously left behind when the regular season starts next week. The numbers are absolutely staggering. In 37 plate appearances during spring training, Durbin is slashing an eye-popping .400 batting average with a .514 on-base percentage and a .600 slugging percentage. Do the math on that, and you're looking at an otherworldly 1.114 OPS. For those not fluent in baseball statistics, that's the kind of production that wins MVP awards. He's also mixed in 4 doubles, a triple, and several balls that would have been sailing into the Boston night if Fenway Park's famous Green Monster was in play instead of JetBlue Park's significantly taller wall. Oh, and he's driving in runs too, with 7 RBIs already under his belt. Now, before you start booking your World Series tickets based on spring training stats, let's pump the brakes for just a moment and inject some reality into this conversation. Spring training numbers are notoriously misleading. They're the fool's gold of baseball statistics. We've all seen it before. A player dominates in March, gets everyone excited, and then faceplants spectacularly when April rolls around and the games actually matter. Remember Bobby Dalbec? That guy would absolutely demolish spring training pitching every single year, and Red Sox fans would get their hopes up thinking they'd finally unlocked the power-hitting first baseman they desperately needed. Then the regular season would start, and it was back to the same old strikeout machine we'd grown frustratingly familiar with. The quality of competition in spring training is another massive caveat we need to address head-on. According to Baseball Reference's quality of opponent metric, Durbin is facing pitchers with an average score of 7.1, which essentially means he's seeing a mixture of AA and AAA level arms, with some major leaguers sprinkled in. That's a far cry from the gauntlet of elite pitching he'll face once the bell rings on the regular season. When you're facing prospects still trying to figure out their breaking balls and fringe roster guys fighting for the last spot on a 26-man roster, yeah, it's going to be easier to put up impressive numbers. So why am I sitting here absolutely geeking out over Caleb Durbin's spring training performance if the stats are basically meaningless and he's not even facing top-tier competition? Because when you dig beneath the surface numbers and examine the underlying metrics and how he's actually achieving this success, there are some genuinely fascinating and encouraging trends emerging that could translate beautifully to the regular season. This isn't just empty calories. There's real substance here. Let's start with the strikeout situation, because this is where Durbin already established himself as elite during his rookie campaign last season. The man is damn near impossible to strike out. In his first year in the majors, Durbin posted a microscopic 9.9% strikeout rate, which was approximately 13% better than league average. In an era where strikeouts are skyrocketing across baseball and teams are routinely whiffing at historic rates, Durbin stands out like a contact-hitting unicorn from a bygone era. The Red Sox were acutely aware of their strikeout problems in 2025, and acquiring a player who simply refuses to strike out was clearly a priority. They needed someone who could put the ball in play consistently, and Durbin fit that profile perfectly. But here's where things get really interesting and where Durbin's spring training is revealing potential growth areas. While his contact skills were never in question, Durbin struggled mightily with plate discipline and drawing walks last season. He walked just 30 times all year, resulting in a paltry 5.9% walk rate that sat 3% below league average. Now, 3% might not sound like much when you first hear it. It's the kind of number that makes your eyes glaze over. But multiply that across a 162-game season with over 600 plate appearances, and suddenly you're talking about a significant number of additional times reaching base safely. Those extra walks add up quickly, turning a league-average hitter into a genuinely productive offensive player. This spring, Durbin has already drawn 5 walks compared to just 2 strikeouts. That's a completely flipped script from what we saw last year, and it's exactly the kind of development that should have Red Sox fans buzzing with excitement. If Durbin can maintain even a fraction of that improved patience and selectivity at the plate during the regular season, his value multiplies exponentially. His OPS hovered around the low 700s last year, basically league average, primarily because his on-base percentage wasn't much higher than his batting average due to the lack of walks. If that on-base percentage climbs 20 or 30 points with more frequent walks, you're suddenly looking at a player with a mid to upper 700 OPS, which is well above league average and exactly the kind of production the Red Sox desperately need from the third base position. Let's not forget that Durbin brings another dimension to his game that often gets overlooked in discussions about his offensive profile. The guy can absolutely fly on the base paths. Despite getting caught stealing a handful of times last season, his sprint speed ranked in the 70th percentile league-wide, making him a legitimate stolen base threat every time he reaches first base. In today's game, with the larger bases and restrictions on pickoff attempts, speed plays more than ever before. The ability to swipe bags puts immense pressure on opposing pitchers and defenses, creating additional run-scoring opportunities and disrupting the rhythm of the game. Durbin has already swiped 3 bags in just 12 spring training games, continuing to showcase that game-changing speed. Combine elite contact skills, improving patience, and genuine stolen base ability, and you're describing one of the more intriguing and multifaceted offensive players in the Red Sox system. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the one area of Durbin's game that has always been considered his Achilles heel: power, or more accurately, the complete and utter lack of power. Durbin has never been confused with a slugger. He's not the guy you're counting on to leave the yard regularly or drive the ball into the gaps with authority. But here's where his spring training takes on additional significance, and where the underlying metrics become absolutely crucial to understanding his development trajectory. Advanced spring training data from tjstats.com, which does phenomenal work breaking down percentiles for spring performance, reveals something fascinating about Durbin's batted ball profile this spring. Now, before we dive into the specifics, I need to be completely transparent with you. When you look at Durbin's power metrics compared to his peers, they're still very much below average. The percentiles are all shaded blue, indicating he's still not hitting for power at an elite or even average level. The Red Sox didn't acquire Durbin expecting him to suddenly morph into a 25 or 30 home run guy. That's simply not who he is as a player, and expecting that kind of transformation would be setting yourself up for disappointment. However, what the Red Sox should reasonably expect and what fans should hope for is incremental improvement in his power output compared to last season. Can Durbin take a step forward and add just a bit more pop to his game without sacrificing the contact skills that make him valuable? The spring training metrics suggest that's exactly what's happening, and it's incredibly encouraging for what it might mean for the regular season. First, let's examine his hard hit percentage, which measures how often a batter makes solid contact resulting in a ball hit at 95 miles per hour or harder. This spring, Durbin is posting a 39% hard hit rate. That might not sound particularly impressive until you compare it to his performance last season, when that number sat at just 27.9%. That's a full 10 percentage point jump, a massive leap that suggests Durbin is making more authoritative contact more frequently. He's not just slapping singles to the opposite field. He's actually driving the baseball with legitimate force. The second metric worth highlighting is his average exit velocity, currently sitting at 87.9 miles per hour this spring. Again, this isn't elite territory by any means, but it represents meaningful improvement from last year's mark of 83.5 miles per hour. That's over 4 miles per hour of additional juice on his average batted ball. And while it might not seem like a monumental difference, in baseball's world of inches and milliseconds, those marginal gains matter enormously. Nobody with any sense is projecting Durbin to suddenly become a middle-of-the-order masher, launching 25 bombs this season. That's fantasy, not reality. But what if he can improve from last year's 11 home runs to somewhere in the 12 to 15 range while simultaneously increasing his doubles from 25 to 35 or 40? That might not make headlines or win any awards, but it absolutely makes a tangible difference in winning baseball games over the course of a 162-game grind. Those extra base hits translate directly into additional runs scored, and in a competitive division like the American League East, where every single win matters, those marginal improvements can be the difference between making the playoffs and watching from home in October. The million-dollar question, of course, is whether this power spike, or perhaps more accurately, power step forward, is legitimate growth and development from Durbin as a hitter, or simply a byproduct of facing inferior competition. Is he actually getting stronger and making better swing decisions, or is it just easier to square up double-A breaking balls? The honest answer is probably somewhere in the middle. The quality of opponent absolutely matters, and facing fringe prospects is undeniably easier than facing Garrett Cole or Corbin Burns. But that doesn't mean we should completely dismiss what Durbin is doing or ignore the encouraging signs in his underlying metrics. The hope and the expectation should be that this represents genuine development. Just because he's facing lesser competition doesn't automatically invalidate everything he's accomplished this spring. Players don't typically show significant jumps in exit velocity and hard hit rates purely due to competition level. Those improvements often reflect actual changes in approach, swing mechanics, or physical strength. The smart approach is to acknowledge both realities. Yes, the competition is weaker, but yes, there appear to be legitimate improvements happening beneath the surface. When evaluating spring training performance, the raw statistics like batting average and home runs are actually the least important factors to consider. What matters far more are the underlying metrics and the process by which a player is achieving their results. How is Durbin getting to these numbers? What's different about his approach? Those are the questions that provide genuine insight into whether spring success might translate to regular season production. The improvements in his hard hit rate, exit velocity, walk rate, and stolen base aggressiveness are all process-oriented developments that absolutely can and should carry over when the games start counting for real. Let's zoom out for a moment and consider what Caleb Durbin's ceiling could actually be if everything clicks and he maintains these improvements throughout the season. We know with certainty that he's going to play excellent defense at third base. That was never in question. We know he's going to put the ball in play at an elite rate and make pitchers work. We know he possesses legitimate stolen base ability that can change games. What we didn't know before this spring was whether he could add a bit more patience at the plate and a bit more thump to his offensive game. If the answer to both those questions turns out to be yes, if he can maintain that improved walk rate and elevated power metrics, then Durbin's ceiling gets raised considerably. It's asking a lot from a player in just his second major league season to show meaningful improvement across multiple facets of his game simultaneously. Development is rarely linear, and sophomore slumps are a real phenomenon in baseball. But based on everything we've seen from Durbin, both last year and this spring, he seems fully capable of taking that next step. He's got the work ethic, the baseball intelligence, and the raw tools to become significantly more than just a placeholder at third base. If Durbin delivers on the promise he's showing this spring and adds those extra dimensions to his game, we could very realistically be talking about him hitting near the top of the Red Sox lineup by season's end, if not sooner. Imagine a scenario where Durbin is your leadoff hitter, getting on base at a 35 or 36% clip, occasionally dropping down a bunt or stealing second base and setting the table for your power hitters. Then you've got Roman Anthony hitting second, one of the most exciting prospects in all of baseball, with a chance to drive in runs regularly. That's a potentially devastating 1-2 punch at the top of the order that could fuel a potent offensive attack. Here's what fascinates me most about Durbin's trajectory. He feels like the kind of player who might fade into the background during the season, while flashier teammates grab all the headlines and attention. Roman Anthony will almost certainly generate more buzz. Wilyer Abreu will make spectacular defensive plays. Tristan Casas will launch majestic home runs. Connor Wong might have breakout moments. Those are the guys who will dominate the highlight reels and social media conversations. Meanwhile, Durbin will just be quietly doing his job every single day, getting his hits, drawing his walks, stealing his bases, making the routine plays look easy. Then you'll look up in September, and Durbin will be right there among the team leaders in hits, runs scored, and OPS. He'll have had his share of big moments and clutch performances that helped win games. His OPS might not crack 870 like a fully realized Roman Anthony or Wilyer Abreu, but it'll be hovering around the mid-700s, consistently providing above-average production from a premium defensive position. That's the kind of steady, reliable, fundamentally sound player that championship teams are built around. Not every player needs to be a superstar. Sometimes the best teams are the ones with the most complete rosters filled with players who simply know how to play winning baseball. That's exactly what Boston should expect from Caleb Durbin this season. Steady production, solid defense, smart base running, and professional at-bats day after day after day. If he delivers on that promise while showing the improvements we've seen this spring, he's going to be one of the most valuable players on the roster, even if he never makes an all-star team or finishes in MVP voting. Baseball needs those glue guys who show up and perform regardless of circumstances, and Durbin has every chance to become exactly that for the Red Sox. The question of whether this spring training performance represents a true first impression or merely a pre-first impression is almost philosophical at this point. Durbin already had his rookie season where he introduced himself to the baseball world. This spring is more like a statement of intent, a declaration that he's not satisfied with where he was last year and he's coming back better. It's about as good a springboard into the regular season as any player could possibly ask for, and it absolutely deserves more attention than it's currently receiving. So what's your take on all this? Do you believe in what Caleb Durbin is doing this spring? Or are you firmly in the camp that spring training statistics are completely meaningless until proven otherwise during the regular season? Can these underlying metrics like improved exit velocity and walk rate actually translate to consistent major league production? Or is it all just smoke and mirrors created by facing inferior competition? Are you as excited as I am about Durbin's potential impact on this team, or do you think the focus should remain squarely on the higher-profile players and prospects? The beauty of baseball is that we're about to find out very soon when games start counting for real next week. The Boston Red Sox have quietly assembled one of the most intriguing rosters in baseball, mixing high-ceiling young talent with proven veterans and under-the-radar acquisitions like Caleb Durbin, who could outperform expectations. Spring training is almost over, and the moment of truth is rapidly approaching. If Durbin can carry even half of what he's shown this spring into April and beyond, the Red Sox might have found themselves an absolute steal, a player who becomes a foundational piece of their lineup for years to come without costing them a fortune in prospects or salary. Keep your eyes on number 14 when the regular season begins. While everyone else is watching the superstars and the hyped prospects, Durbin might just be the player who quietly makes the biggest difference in whether the Red Sox return to October baseball. This spring training performance might seem like just numbers on a page right now, but come September, we might be looking back on these weeks in Fort Myers as the moment we should have realized Caleb Durbin was about to break out in a major way. Don't say nobody warned you. If you made it this far, you're clearly as passionate about Red Sox baseball as I am, and I appreciate you sticking with me through this deep dive into Caleb Durbin's impressive spring. Make sure you're paying attention when the season starts next week, because this team is going to be absolutely electric to watch. Drop your thoughts and predictions in the comments, because I genuinely want to know what the Red Sox faithful are thinking heading into this season. Are you buying the Durbin hype? Are you more excited about other players? Let's hear it. And most importantly, make sure you're ready for an incredible season of baseball, because it's almost here, and this Red Sox team is ready to make some serious noise. See you in the red seats.